Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Mary Stella Aumasimiu. I work with the International Press Institute as the Africa Senior Legal Advocacy Officer, and thank you very much for joining our session today on the triple threat in DRC and Sudan, climate conflict, and censorship. So I'm joined by an excellent panel that I'm going to introduce shortly, but I thought let me start by first giving an overview. I think we can all admit that journalists in Africa are operating in very difficult circumstances. Every other day we hear either if it's not weaponization of the law, and there's just been an amazing session today where the Thomson Reuters Foundation has actually launched a report on weaponization of the law that I encourage you all to read. But if it's not weaponization of the law against journalists, you hear stories of physical assault. If it's not that, it's intimidation, it's threats, and the stories go on and on and on. And we can admit that there is a direct correlation between the human rights record of a particular country and the state of press freedom, which is dismal, unfortunately, in a number of African countries. And for journalists who are reporting in the context of conflict, it's even worse, because not only do they have to report about the human rights violations that happen in the context of that conflict, it's even more about the environmental impact of that particular conflict, as well as environmental harms and exploitation that we see happening in the context of that particular conflict. So for this session, we'll be looking at the situation in the DRC, as well as the situation in Sudan. And in quarters, you'll have had these conflicts that are happening in these two countries referred to as the forgotten wars, because when you look at the extent to which they have been covered in international media, as compared to, let's say, the conflicts in Ukraine, Ukraine and Russia, as well as the Gaza war, there is a disconnect in terms of the relativity, in terms of how it has been covered. And so it is shouldered, that responsibility is shouldered by local journalists who are operating in hostile contexts, but they are the ones who shoulder the biggest responsibility with regards to reporting on these conflicts. And it's important for us to give local journalists their flowers, because they are actually undertaking what we call a public interest, a huge public interest that we have to actually support and see how we as stakeholders can actually come together and support them and ensure that we are strengthening their reporting in this context. So I'm joined again by three panelists who are going to take us through this. Let me just introduce them shortly. On my left is Jonas Kiriko. He's a journalist based in the DRC, and he works with Oxpec as investigative environmental journalism, reporting on transnational database multimedia investigations into environmental crimes. He's also the InfoNal coordinator in the DRC. Kiriko has a degree in information and communication sciences, and he specialized in multimedia publishing. He's a 2025 fellow of Palliser Center, Rainforest Investigation Network, and he has over 10 years of experience in journalism. Welcome. In the middle, we have Tom Rhodes. He's a veteran journalist. So he told me not to use the word veteran. I forgot that it makes him look old. He's a journalist and editor with over 20 years of experience covering events in Greater East and Horn region. Originally a foreign correspondent in Sudan, he has launched South Sudanese's first independent weekly and currently supports one of Sudan's leading independent and bilingual media houses. He's the managing editor at IE Network, and previously he's worked for CPJ and the manager editor of Nuba Reports. For a short stint there, he was also my colleague at IPI, even though he's not said that here. But yeah, it's always great to have him in the room. And last but not least, we have Francesca, who has also had a session in the morning, an Ignite talk. She's a programs coordinator for Africa Outreach at the Palliser Center on crisis reporting. She's from Cote d'Ivoire, but based in Kigali, Rwanda, and she's dedicated to leveraging media and strategic partnerships to amplify youth voices in critical policy-making processes across the continent. Welcome, Francesca. So to start us off, we'll have Tom, who will discuss the experience of journalists reporting in Sudan. Over to you, Tom. Yeah? Sorry?
Hey. There we go. All right. One of my colleagues, a journalist named Mohammed Abdel Hafez, said it perfectly. He said, the war in Sudan is no longer just a battle on land. It has become a battle against the land itself. The environment is one of the unnamed victims of Sudan's ongoing war, now in its third year. Some people may not know this, but Sudan is considered the worst humanitarian crisis in the world at the moment. And yet I would argue that it's also received the least media attention. According to one survey that I saw recently, on a daily basis, and I'm not trying to belittle these other situations by any means, but just to give you a comparison, in Gaza there's around 59 news reports per day on the situation in Gaza. Ukraine receives around 23 international news reports. Sudan, if it's lucky, may receive one. So the people of Sudan and the environment of Sudan has certainly been forgotten over these years. And according to several environmental studies, Sudan is one of the most vulnerable nations on earth to the climate crisis, with one UN analysis placing Sudan in the top 10 list of countries most vulnerable to climate change. And like many conflicts, the environment suffers greatly because it's exacerbated by the conflict. There was very few people monitoring ecological conditions in Sudan prior to the war, but now in the war, it's no holds barred. And people are misusing this opportunity, whether it's for logging, whether it's for poor practices in gold mining, and all the while creating this detrimental effect further and further. And the journalists themselves have trouble accessing these areas to cover it. Just to give you some of the examples of the environmental degradation that we're seeing these days is the destruction of 2 oil refineries, one in Heglig in southern Sudan, and one actually right in the capital area, just north of the capital in Al Jaili. Industrial sites, oil refineries, and chemical plants have been looted and bombed. This is leaching heavy metals into toxic chemicals into the soil, and even worse, into the Nile itself. One place that's really close to my heart, which saddens me, is some reports that we've done at Ain covering Sunut Forest. This is a forest just south of the capital, and it was considered the lungs of the city because of the type of wood that was available there. Sporadic reports have emerged of looting of timber on this 400-acre forest here at the confluence of the White and Blue Niles in Khartoum. But it's not just Sunut Forest, it's many forests across the country. When the national power grid collapsed, and fuel became hard to find, what do people do? They end up resorting to timber and to charcoal for fuel. And we've seen this human-intensive deforestation taking place in various parts, especially in Al Jazeera state, which is in the middle of the country, where there was one estimate that 6,100 hectares of natural vegetation, which is closely equivalent to maybe 4,000, maybe 5,000 football fields, were lost in 1 year alone in 2024. Our reporters who are in Darfur have said similar reports in Zalingay in central Darfur. Our reporters in the east, in Kassala, have reported similarly. And we're also getting some indication that Dinder National Park has also been deforested. I think perhaps the worst, though, is linked to the gold trade. And there's a reason for that, because gold is fueling the conflict in Sudan. It's the main source of income for both warring parties, whether you're talking to the army or to the other side, the paramilitary rapid support forces. Since it's such, Sudan is like the third largest gold producer in Africa. In 2025, official production rates estimated that Sudan, at least on the army side, had produced around 70 tons, surpassing a government estimate of 13%. But the actual amount is probably a lot higher because gold smuggling is rampant. And when you talk to gold traders on the ground, they're saying more like 100 tons were exported in 1 year. And again, this is only coming from the army side. We're not seeing how much gold is being produced on the Rapid Support Forces side. And since it's become so lucrative, army officers, rebel groups, etc., are all cashing into the gold trade, and they have no desire for it to stop, despite the environmental damages that are desecrating huge parts of northern Sudan and South Kordofan in southern Sudan. Most of the miners are artisanal, 80 to 90%. And these are sort of local guys going down into the soil and trying to find small tidbits of gold within this soil. And they use terrible chemicals. They use things like cyanide and mercury to do this. And there's no one monitoring this. So once they find the gold, they just simply dump the polluted soil into riverbeds, into crops, etc., creating a real devastation for the environment for Sudan. And it's happening unabated because the profits are too high. We've done several of these reports in northern Sudan, actually, and there's been a lot of, local community efforts supporting these efforts because they feel that this is a story that isn't being told. The challenge, though, is not so much trying to report on the environment. The challenge is actually trying to report in any capacity. The Sudan Journalist Syndicate, an independent union, has some really stark statistics. I mean, 90% of Sudan's media infrastructure was destroyed. I mean, the number changes all the time, but roughly 500 journalists have fled the country. In fact, most of the reporting now is done in exile. And both warring parties target journalists. The syndicate estimates that 32 journalists have been killed since the war started in mid-April 2023. So access is a huge problem, especially in huge swaths of Khartoum, of the Kordofan regions and the Darfur regions in the west. When it comes to internet connectivity is another issue, especially if you're trying to report in RSF-controlled areas because they actually control the Starlinks, which control this connectivity. So we at ION are constantly trying to find ways of getting the story out there, using more and more localized networks as we do it. And I'm just turning the page here. So yeah, with these kind of statistics, any kind of reporting, let alone climate related, remains extremely challenging and partly explains the dearth in coverage. The actual dearth of access and reporting at large leaves the media only guessing at the level of environmental damage taking place across the country. But there are some silver linings. For one, the local communities are supporting the media, and they're definitely supporting them in coverage of things like the gold mining and other the timber looting. Every time we've gone to some of these villages, we've received support, even awards for our coverage in these areas. And strangely enough, the destruction of the national grid has also had some oddly positive silver linings because people now are devoting their times to solar power. Solar power has become huge in Khartoum and the sister capital, Omdurman. But the challenge really does continue. And we really do need to focus not only on the conflict and the devastation and the humanitarian aspect, but also on the climate. Because at the end of the day, the climate is one of the main catalysts for this conflict in the first place. With climate change, grazing lands across huge swaths of Sudan, not only in Darfur, but other areas as well, in Kordofan and North Kordofan, and even in the east, creating these local community, conflicts. And politicians have capitalized this and armed these groups and intensified the conflict that we're seeing today. Sorry, that was a lot of numbers, and I'll leave it at that for now, but hopefully we can talk some more in the questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Tom, for starting us off. And, you know, it's very sad to hear some of the numbers that you've mentioned. And, you know, how journalists in DRC have to come up with strategies to actually continue reporting generally, as well as with regards to the environment. But I'm wondering if you can mention a little bit more about the cross-border collaborations that we're seeing, because you've talked about how most of the journalists, the majority of the journalists are reporting in exile. And so how are journalists across the different borders working together with even different stakeholders to ensure that the story is still told, but on the other side, ensuring their safety and security is protected? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's a delicate balance. I mean, quite often you'll find that like the editors and senior reporters were forced to flee because they're well known by both warring parties, you know, and could be targeted by either side. But like for example, at Heighten and other independent media houses like Dabanga, Sudan Tribune, etc., they have correspondents inside the country, but they have to remain anonymous for their own security and safety. So we do these kind of delicate communications in between, you know, say Nairobi, say Kampala, and our correspondents within the country. But other times, honestly, it's become a situation where we must rely more and more on citizen journalism and training new echelons to join us, to do the reporting. I mean, you know, sorry, not to get off target, but while I sometimes criticize international and regional media for not focusing on Sudan, I'm also sympathetic. I mean, for example, Agence France Presse, AFP, reached out to me asking, hey, can we collaborate together, because we just don't know what's going on, you know? And I think that's what makes the Sudan case so scary, and I'm sure it may be similar for Congo, is that, you know, it's not so much that people don't want to know what's going on, it's simply we don't have the access.
Thank you for that, Tom, and I'll come back to you later. But let's move to DRC, and we have Jonas to take us through. This is also an opportunity for us to test our French, because Jonas is going to be presenting in French, and then Francesca is going to act as our interpreter, because we don't have an interpreter here currently. So and I'm sure some of you have seen, you know, when you go to church and there's simultaneous interpretation, this is going to be what is going to happen currently. So we'll have Jonas presenting in French, and then Francesca will give us some bits of summary in English.
I will try my best, actually.
I have faith in you.
Okay,
No pressure.
I'm so sorry, because my English is still basic. Don't worry, I'm learning. And I think for the next session, I will be able to present in English. Yeah. Yeah. Parler de... Yeah, I think we must... Thank you. Voilà. Je suis censé vous parler de la situation de la RDC, qui est mon pays, et où je suis journaliste. De là, je travaille pour Oxpakers en tant qu'associé. Je travaille aussi pour Ifonail en tant que coordinateur. Alors, tous ces médias ont pour thématique l'environnement, le changement climatique et toutes les thématiques qui vont avec.
Sorry, a small technical issue. He just said that he's from DRC, and during this presentation, he would be sharing about environmental and climate situation in the DRC. He is a journalist, and he also works from DRC.
Yeah. Alors, parler de la couverture des conflits, du changement climatique pour la RDC, c'est un contexte qui paraît hostile, pour les journalistes en particulier, mais désolé, c'est un contexte qui est global pour les habitants du Congo parce qu'ils traversent une situation compliquée avec la guerre qui vient de durer depuis plus de 30 ans.
Talking about climate and environmental change in DRC is a bit hostile, but this issue connects with other journalists and other situations somewhere in the globe.
Et alors, désolé clairement, c'est que il y a la guerre, oui. Et toutes les parties ont besoin de contrôler les formations. C'est-à-dire, il y a les journalistes qui doivent être formés et il deviendra le troisième belligérant.
So,
I would say that, ouais. Donc, lorsqu'on parle de la guerre, c'est que toutes les parties au conflit doivent contrôler les formations. Et alors, le journaliste, il est censé être formé, c'est-à-dire qu'il devient un troisième belligérant.
okay. So he
Un
just
troisième
shared
protagoniste.
that.
Un protagoniste.
Yeah, he just shared that talking about the crises and coups that is happening in DRC, it's a bit difficult to leak the news. So all the power, like the decision makers, those that are in power, tends to kind of direct how the story is going to be presented to the public.
Yeah, I would say that the two parts of the conflict have to control information. Then the journalist is becoming a further protagonist of the conflict. Then it's so complicated for them to do their work in independence. Yeah, c'est ce que je voulais dire. Alors, next. Il y a le fait de couvrir une guerre qui vient de durer longtemps et qui semble fatiguer les gens. Personne ne s'intéresse plus de cette guerre-là. C'est-à-dire que c'est une guerre qui semble avoir duré longtemps et ça n'intéresse personne. Il n'y a plus de compassion.
So it looks like since this crisis is something that has been happening for quite a while now, for years, people don't talk more about it anymore. They don't put a lot of attention to it because it seems like they are tired of speaking the same things time and time again.
Yeah. Il y a aussi un autre aspect, c'est que c'est des questions de changement climatique dont aussi le journaliste a la charge de parler. Alors, ça devient comme si le journaliste a le choix entre informer sur la guerre et informer sur les changements climatiques. Qu'est-ce qui est prioritaire?
So, in that case, the journalist has to make a difficult choice, which is either to talk about environmental changes that is happening in the country, or talk about the crises that have been happening for years now.
Alors, le problème pour nous, les journalistes, c'est qu'on devient comme si on est piégé. Alors, depuis 10 ans ou 20 ans, on parlait de la même chose. Alors, même la compassion disparaît. Même, c'est-à-dire, il y a un peu de la fatigue qui devient généralisée. Que ce soit, c'est un peu comme on peut vous demander chaque fois d'intervenir lorsqu'il y a un couple qui est à conflit. Donc, tu dois intervenir chaque jour, ça devient comme si ça fatigue tout le monde. Alors, malheureusement, c'est le jour où l'époux va tuer l'épouse, où tu refuses d'intervenir et la situation dégénère.
So for journalists, DRC journalists, they are quite tired because it's been a while that they keep saying the same thing, and it's like an intervention in a wedding where those people are fighting every time, and you are the one coming in to separate them. So with time, you tend to get tired of that.
Alors, quelques chiffres, c'est que d'après les estimations du gouvernement congolais, depuis 2014, il y a les terroristes de l'ADF qui ont déjà tué environ 7000 personnes dans la région de Beni. D'ailleurs, je suis issu de cette région-là. Il y a aussi une rébellion qui se déroule au pays actuellement. On parle d'environ 53 millions de déplacés internes. C'est-à-dire, ça devient comme si on recyclait la même chose chaque 10 ans, chaque 5 ans, il y a la guerre qui revient. Ça devient un peu de la fatigue. C'est-à-dire, vous voyez combien c'est complexe. It's very complicated for us as journalists to make a choice between talking about war and talking about environmental issue. Then, I think, on my opinion, these two situations are linked. There are a link between the war and between the climate crisis. Why there is a link? Because if you go around the village where the war is c'est déroulé là où la guerre se passe. Tu vas dans les villages où la guerre se passe.
Yeah, in the village where the crisis is happening.
Yeah. On te dira qu'il y a un conflit de terre qui oppose telle personne, telle tribu contre telle autre. Si tu vas dans un autre, on te dira cette communauté s'oppose parce que c'est une communauté constituée des éleveurs et l'autre est constituée des agriculteurs, c'est-à-dire les éleveurs n'ont plus d'endroit où paître leurs brebis. Ça devient un problème de changement climatique, mais qui devient à la base de la guerre. C'est-à-dire, c'est beaucoup de situations comme celle-là dans lesquelles les journalistes sont censés faire les choix, parler de quoi et laisser quoi.
So when we go to the village, we see that there are conflicts for land between farmers and comment dire élever en anglais? Yeah, sorry. Sorry, in French we say éleveurs. It's like those people that take care of animals. What? Yeah, like yeah. That's it. So when a journalist go to this kind of village, it's very hard for him to get the real story, because they are pointing to each other, saying that, oh, this is my land, and this is my land, so we can get to the end of it. And for journalists, it's very difficult.
Okay. You can next. Yeah, there is some picture is about the Congolese conflict. Alors, l'objectif n'est pas d'attirer votre compassion, mais c'est de vous présenter comment est-ce que la situation se passe. Là, ce sont des habitations dans des villages qui sont en train d'être brûlés. Ça, c'est l'œuvre des ADF. Ici, il y a des communautés autochtones qui ont perdu les leurs qui sont dans ces sacs-là, qui ont été tués. Et là, ce sont des miliciens qui sont devenus presque officiels, qui travaillent en parallèle avec les forces gouvernementales. Donc, c'est un peu ça, dans cette situation où le journaliste congolais est censé travailler. Vous voyez, il y a un journaliste là-bas. There is a journalist there. He's working. It's very complicated because s'il quitte là-bas, s'il va de l'autre côté, il sera menacé. Il dira, bon, on t'a vu en train de couvrir la situation de l'autre côté. Donc, c'est complexe pour les journalistes congolais.
Okay, so he's sharing a picture, or like pictures of the current situation there. And he also pointed out a journalist that is in the back. And he said that for journalists, it's a bit difficult because people actually noticed. So if they see someone with this team, and then you are coming to another team to, I don't know, like to try and talk with them, it will feel like you are, I'm adding this, you are trying to spy on them. Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Okay, then let us talk about censorship. Yeah. As I was said, there is a complex situation to do journalism. When I started my speech, I said that the two parts of the conflicts have the hard wish to control information. C'est là qu'intervient alors, quand les deux parties au conflit ont besoin de contrôler l'information, c'est là qu'intervient maintenant la censure. C'est-à-dire, les gouvernements ou les forces gouvernementales veulent contrôler l'information. Les forces rebelles veulent contrôler l'information. Les journalistes, c'est la personne qui est habilitée à donner l'information. On lui dit, tu as diffusé l'information des rebelles, c'est-à-dire que tu n'es pas un patriote. Tu dois aller à prison. Wow. Côté rebelle, il dira, mais tu as diffusé l'information gouvernementale, ça signifie que tu es aussi un traître pour notre mouvement. Donc c'est un peu complexe et il devient une censure qui devient voilée, mais qui de plus en plus devient la norme. C'est-à-dire, les journalistes commencent à s'abstenir de parler de certains sujets. I don't know, you can translate a bit.
So, I think I forgot. But like, he just said that when a journalist is trying to reveal the truth, government can come to him saying that you are talking about the country, you are not patriotic. And for that, you can end up in jail. And on the other side, when he also wants to talk the truth again, we have those, how we call it, like the rebels. They come to him saying that he's not faithful to his country. So both sides, they are against him as it seems. Yeah.
Okay, I think I can stop right there about this chapter. Okay. Let me talk about what we are doing as a media in the same context of the conflict and the climate change. Here we have Oxpeckers and our tool. If you go to our website, you find climate tracker. It's a tool that helps farmers to make a good choice. When are we supposed to plant our
our crops?
Our crops,
yeah.
And which season will be more hot than another one? It's a tool we did as a media to try to find solution about the problem of society. And the other side, in Ifonile, as I said, I work for Chubov. We have a program that we call Nile Well. In this program, we connect journalists and scientists. Most of scientists are specialized in climate change, water resources, and environment issues. It's a platform to try to interconnect journalists and scientists. We did this to try to find a solution about the problem of source for journalists. Yeah. I think we can move a bit. Yeah, and in practice, there is two stories. about flood in Kinshasa. And this one is a problem of water crisis. That was around Goma. Goma is in North Kivu province, where the rebels of M23 has started their KG. Yeah. Okay, I think it's all for now. Then we are ready for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonas.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I think I could even just speak from what you're saying in terms of, you mentioned journalists are fatigued, but they still continue doing it despite the fatigue. And we applaud the work that the two organizations are doing to ensure the stories come out and building the capacity of journalists as they report in very difficult situations. And I'm sure we'll come back to you, and I'm sure the participants have questions. But I'll go to Francesca because I know we are running out of time. Francesca works with Paltiza, and that is not a new name for a lot of us in this field. Please talk a little bit more about the work that you're doing and what support can be given to journalists, including climate and environmental reporters, to support them and strengthen the work that they're doing.
All right, thank you. I think we tried our best to communicate and
you did
translate.
a very good job.
Yeah, I did my best. So for the interest of time, I will try to go a bit faster for what about the Pulitzer Center. And then from there, we can get questions. So we are a non-profit organization of journalists based in the DC. And what we do is to support journalists from around the globe. And not only journalists, but also newsrooms, journalists, but freelancer journalists as well. So we provide them financial, editorials, and other types of support to support their work. So what we do is we work on underrepresented stories. Those are stories that other media outlets might not go deeper into it. So for example, what is the why behind the what was produced? So this is the kind of things that we look into. We operate in the DC, but also in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. And also, we are actually worldwide, but that is where we mostly do our work. So in terms of support for journalists, we have different kind of opportunities. But for instance, I'll mostly focus on the Africa region, since we are in Africa, and then we are talking about the Africa. So we have two types of opportunity for journalists. The first is the reporting grant that is done over 6 months. So mostly the grants are in rolling basis. So it's available on the website. You can go through it and then look if that represents what you're looking into in types of reporting. But we also have special grants. For those, we actually do a call for proposal where there is deadline, other specific information about that. We also have fellowships. Fellowships are a 1-year program where we also provide support. We also provide support to journalists to help with their investigation and help reporting what the issue that they have identified and would like to work on that. So in terms of support when it comes to fragile and conflict areas, as much as we are not in person there, we do facilitate communications and support with our local partners that are there, and also give access to our resources, tools, and platforms in order to facilitate them. Other than journalism reporting, we also do engagement. So we believe that reporting shouldn't end only at the reporting side. After that, how do we bring the conversation to the local site? How do we make the community engaged? So this is where the engagement team enters in. So they do open for grants for different types of projects. It could be from webinars to digital contests to radio, that depend based on the call. And I think some of the people in the room have been able to beneficiary from those calls and were able to do their actions. So as for challenge that we have identified so far while working with journalists, we realize that sometimes in areas where conflict tends to happen, it's difficult for them to have access to authorizations, to have access to some informations. Sometimes the people are a bit restricted. They don't have the opportunity to talk freely. So this is a sort of challenge that we also see. We also sometimes see that some of the materials are being destroyed in the circumstances. So this is a bit. I had to go quickly because of the interest of time, but with the questions, I would be able to go deeply into it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francesca, and to all the panelists. But now I want to open it up for questions, comments, and interventions from the crowd. And as I look around, also just to mention, I'm glad to hear what the Paltiser Center is doing. Last year, the International Press Institute actually launched a program on strengthening climate and environmental reporting in the African continent. And we are looking at, in East Africa, we have Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, and yes, that is in Eastern Africa. Then in West Africa, we have Nigeria and Ghana. In Southern Africa, we have South Africa and Mozambique. And in Central Africa, we have the DRC Congo. And we are really trying to see how we can adopt this multi-pronged approach where we undertake research, where we undertake joint advocacy, where we also continue monitoring press freedom violations, including those affecting climate and environmental reporters, not only in our priority countries, but across Africa. And also a last leg of the work that we do is capacity building and training of journalists. And so seeing the work that Paltiser is doing, you're always a great partner for us because I don't think this is something one organization can do alone. It really does require a multi-stakeholder approach. Yes, so I'm going to look to the crowd. Any questions? Any comments? Yes, we have one here.
Does it?
It wasn't working in the beginning.
Hello. Thank you. Can I see? Yeah. I have a question for Tom. Tom, thank you so much for all the informations. It's amazing what you did, and it's so sad to hear that with our all resources, and we have to suffer because of our resource. And the gold mining or the gold. All the information you give us here about Sudan is the same thing what is happening in Ethiopia right now, in the northern part of Ethiopia, Tigray. I came from that area. And all the resources is going by the smugglers or by the federal government. And most of this gold mining is by digging by a group of people or just individuals, and they use the same thing, the mercury. Very bad for the environment, very bad to my people. They're dying with both sides. Digging also like just with the chemical, how affected like to the environment. And I know this, and it's so sad. I didn't do anything for that. I really want to be a voice, but it's so hard. Same like how my brother is facing in Congo to talk about like the crisis. Same thing in Ethiopia. We're facing like same thing. It's a story, my story. And I might be like, if I just being a voice, it will change like something. It's so difficult with both sides. The federal government will make you like enemy when you work on that, because they got like 10 tons or 10,000 kilogram golds only last year after the conflict. Before that was like half every year. But what happened was a lot of young people after the conflict, they're out of work. They don't have anything to do. And they go to the mountains digging and get like the gold. They don't get anything. They don't have like even electricity. So the federal government knows this. They don't do anything. And the other side is the smugglers. There's so many like just big hand people. They will like just in a second, they will know you if you go to that area. Even though I'm not like outsider. I'm from that area. But they know if someone is like just going to investigate this kind of thing. And I don't know, what do you have like for me to tip, Tom? And what tip do you gonna give me to bring this up, to take it out, the story? Not like only like international medias. Like my people also, they don't know about this. They don't have like that much like information. If you go out of like that circle, there is nothing. There is no big news. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I should have mentioned Ethiopia, by the way, because this is universal. This is, I'm sure, also happening in the Congo in terms of gold mining. I mean, just as you said, it's a progenitor for these conflicts. So the leading military councils and the politicians have no interest whatsoever in curbing this. And yet the destruction is terrible. I mean, you know, when you go to these villages in northern Sudan, the miscarriage rate is unprecedented. Animals are dying, you know, for no reason, just collapsing. It's really tragic. And as my friend just mentioned, it's almost impossible to report, because I think one of the critical things that people seem to forget is that when you're doing environmental or climate reporting, it's most often in remote areas. It's not in the city. You know, you're not trying to do pollution of the streets. And so everybody knows you, right? Everybody knows who you are, and you simply can't do it surreptitiously. You're going to be caught every time you go. The one positive thing that we've managed to do in Sudan is we've purposely made it that the reporters who cover these stories aren't from those areas. That's number one. So there's a little bit of anonymity from that side of things. But our biggest strength actually has been the people themselves. Because the communities, for example, in a town called Abu Hamad, where there's a major gold mining industry happening, are so fed up with the lack of environmental protection. And even the miners themselves, I mean, they're doing it out of desperation, right? Because there's no other job in town. Either you become a soldier or you become a gold miner. Those are your two choices, you know, for employment. But even them, they recognize what they're doing is wrong, but they don't have a way out of it. So what we've done is we've before we do any story on gold mining, we make sure we have a good connection with the people within the town first, so that we have a security network, having our backs. The other day, I shouldn't brag, but I almost cried because this local village gave us a certificate, of appreciation for what we had done. And it's like, to me, that's much more important than any kind of global award or anything, just having that kind of connection to the community. So yeah, I think if you do something, sorry, I'm talking way too much, but I think if you do something on gold mining, you have to do a slow dive. You got to make sure you know some people there first. You have to make sure you have that kind of support from the community, not just any kind of parachuting in and trying to cover the crisis. But it's so important, and I really hope you can do it. Let's chat something. Yeah.
Thank you. Jonas, any advice?
Yeah, about his questions.
Yes.
Yeah, he was talking about the conflict, who is around the control of resources. Is it that? Then how we must cover? Yeah. Okay. I think in Ifonail we have an approach. What we are doing is to promote the local journalism, to promote collaborative journalism between local journalists, first between local journalists, and between them and the international journalists. That is one of our approach, and is a good one because it allows to get information from the communities to the higher level. Yeah, that is one of the approach we are doing in Ifonail. I think you can implement it. It's okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, we have one here and one at the very back. Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Lebon Kasamira. I'm a journalist from DRC. And I want to ask my question in French. J'ai été épaté par la présentation. Vous parlez des conflits, des climats, mais j'aimerais comprendre, parce que nous sommes à African Media Festival, comment les narratifs, parce qu'aujourd'hui, si vous voyez bien les conflits dans notre pays, ce sont les auteurs, les chercheurs qui viennent d'Europe ou de l'Occident, qui viennent et documentent notre quotidien, documentent notre conflit. Et nous, en tant que journalistes nationaux, nous servons de fixeurs ou de pigistes. J'aimerais que tu dises quelque chose, Jonas, par rapport à ça, et par rapport aussi à comment votre projet fonctionne, votre tracker. En fait, clairement, comment vous collaborez avec les journalistes locaux, juste à l'international. Merci.
Okay, I don't know about his question. I'm able to translate it, but my answer, I will not say able to. Okay, for him, he's wondering how the one who is talking about our situation is almost journalists from Europe, from the other country, from overseas country. As a local journalists, what can we do to try to change that situation? Yeah. But my answer will be in French, I'm sorry. Voilà. C'est que Oui, ta question est pertinente et elle est fondée. C'est les constats que j'ai aussi. Mais il faut indiquer que quelque part aussi, il y a un complexe. Il y a un complexe qui est lié à... alors, I'm not racist to say that in my country, if a white man is before a politician to ask for something, the politician is very, very quick to give answer and to give everything he will ask. Ce qui fait que c'est un problème pour nous. It's a big issue for us as local journalists. There is no confiance. There is no trust between our friend, our brother. It's not possible for them. They can't trust us. Then they trust someone who comes from overseas. Yeah, it's complicated for us as local journalists. Alors, qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire, c'est que peut-être qu'il faut de l'éducation aux médias pour ces gens-là, pour essayer de leur montrer que les questions qu'ils vont aborder nous concernent d'abord nous. When we talk about our situation, then we have to give us the priority of information. I think we must educate them to try to change the situation on their side. It's a challenge, I know. And another aspect was about, tu parles de quel outil? Le deuxième, le premier? Le deuxième, sur comment connecter le scientifique et les journalistes. Ah, voilà. C'est que sur la plateforme Nilewell, I don't know, maybe we can... Okay. Yeah. The second one. Si Nilewell, c'est-à-dire que tu peux te connecter, tu crées ton compte. Quand tu crées ton compte, c'est que ça te donne la possibilité d'interchanger avec la communauté des gens qui sont là-bas. Alors, il y a une communauté qui est divisée à deux. La première, elle est composée de scientifiques et la seconde est composée de journalistes. Alors, c'est des scientifiques qui sont de la région du bassin du Nil, pour ce qui est de Nilewell. Et même les journalistes, ils sont dans le bassin du Nil parce que le gros de notre travail se déroule dans le bassin du Nil chez Ifonile. C'est ce qui s'est fait. C'est-à-dire, là, tu as la possibilité d'interchanger. Directement, tu te connectes non seulement avec un journaliste comme toi, mais tu te connectes aussi avec un scientifique. Et tu as la possibilité de poser ta question dans la plateforme et recevoir la réponse dans la plateforme. Ouais, peut-être qu'on pourra continuer comment ça fonctionne pratiquement après cette séance. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So you were explaining how the second platform works. So as he said, you have to log in the link, create your account, and then you would have access to two different type of communities. The first one is a community of researchers that are located in the Nile region, and the second one are also a community of journalists that are also located in the Nile region. So there you can share with them your questions, your queries, and you would interact with them directly on the platforms. They would be able to support you as you need. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Then we have another question at the back, right at the back. Thank you. And as the microphone heads there, maybe something you can also respond to both Tom and Jonas. Jonas mentioned how journalists find themselves caught between two warring elephants, where you have one, the government saying you cannot report on this, or you have to ensure you only get information from official sources. And then you have the rebels also want to push a particular narrative. And then also there's the other ugly monster of false news that finds fertile ground where there's no access to information. So I'd like to hear how journalists in both Sudan and DRC are navigating that, where you have two different factions wanting to push different narratives, and then you also have false information that is spread in these information vacuums, and also in this confusion where there's also propaganda. How journalists in both countries are navigating that space. But now I'm sure the microphone has arrived at the back. Over to you.
Good afternoon. I've been listening to the presentations, and I find it very disconcerting that, the impression is being created that there is such a great deal of dependency of African journalists on their northern counterparts and international organizations to facilitate their reporting. Because I believe that this is not an issue of dependency. It's an issue of power, and we need to assess exactly where that power lies, because this is about resource extraction. Resource wars have become media wars, and it is the interest of certain elites to facilitate destruction because there is a dollar value to it. So by the same token, we speak about narratives, but those narratives are being weaponized because this is where decisions are made about the value of the lives of African journalists. So I have a question. The real issue is that, and I come from a country also where there is excessive resource extraction, but it is by big multilateral corporations which drive that agenda. And it's the government and others are just playing their role in a much bigger circle of corruption. So the focus of the journalism is on the local corruption issues. So these institutions that are supporting, to what extent are you ensuring, for example, that there is policy change to ensure that governments are signing up to the environmental initiative for transparency? To what extent are you ensuring that there is a closing of the gap in terms of transparency and accountable in national legislation? Because this is where it starts. One has to ask yourself the extent to which local African journalists go to and the human toll involved in that. Is it worth the lives that are lost, the lives that are disregarded consistently? Because this is, again, as I said, about power, and there are very few that actually benefit from it to the detriment of the journalists on the ground.
Thank you, Zoe. Jonas, do you want to start us off? Tom?
Okay. Thanks, Zoe. That was a complex question, though. I mean, in the case of Sudan, the sad truth is we don't really have a truly legitimate government to advocate against. I mean, the warring, the army has a certain amount of control of Port Sudan and Khartoum, whereas the rapid support forces have set up some sort of government in Nyala in South Darfur state. But neither side is really truly legitimate. I mean, the African Union doesn't even recognize Sudan at the moment because of the coup that took place prior to the war. So, the extent of how much we can advocate and push for policy change is extremely limited. But you're absolutely right. It is, the cornerstone to this whole conflict is resources and resource extraction. So I feel that we at Ain and other media houses in Sudan, but we need to focus a lot more on these regional actors if we're going to see any change and any kind of focus on the environment. Both warring parties have their supporters, and both of these warring parties and the countries that support them are extracting for their own benefit. I mean, it's not a secret that everyone knows that the United Arab Emirates are supporting the Rapid Support Forces, and they also benefit from the gold. The same can be said to another extent for Egypt when they're supporting the side of the army, along with other actors, Turkey, for example. So, in our case in Sudan, we really need to focus on the region and how they're affecting the country as a policy view. One thing I quickly want to say is, I'm a Mozambique here, and you're probably scratching your head because you're like, hey, why is a Mozambique talking for a Sudanese media house? And you have a right to say that. But this tells you how insecure the situation is. First of all, I'm the only Mozambique in this entire at Ain. I'm like the one guy there. So it is completely local. But it's also there's a lot of insecurity, and none of my colleagues really felt comfortable coming up on stage and saying I'm part of Ain. So that's why I'm here, just to add. Oh, I forgot your question. Wait. Sorry. No, I mean, this is it. This is the huge problem that all reporters in Sudan are facing. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You're between a rock and a hard place. Reporters who are based in the army-controlled areas, in the east and central parts of the country, are constantly being accused of being RSF, Rapid Support Force, spies or collaborators. And while the death toll of Sudanese journalists has been so catastrophically high, I mean, some say 32, others estimate 16, but it's still far too many. There's still many, many more journalists, hundreds, who have been detained, who are still detained from both warring parties for doing their coverage. So it's reached a point where, you basically have to conceal your profession while on the job for fear of being accused of being a war collaborator.
Yeah, it's a stressed situation, and the first attitude as journalists, you do the censorship yourself. This is the first attitude. And the second one, then you see that's very, very, very risky. You become el hacer de alerta es aquí, el hacer de alerta. Yeah, you become a source for the other journalists. That you say yourself, no, I can't appear in this information, but I give you some details, then you can use them in your own risk also. So, yeah, I think it's complicated, as I said, but we are still working as journalists, and we think in the future situation will be better. Okay.
Thank you. Doing a final sweep across the room. Any more comments, questions before I go back to the panelists for their final round, their last comments? Going once, going twice. Okay. I think I'll start with you, Francesca. Final remarks.
For final remarks, I would say today we had only the chance to talk about DRC and Sudan, as well as a bit of Ethiopia. But this is a situation that happened everywhere. We have journalists everywhere in the globe that are trying to do their work peacefully. And we are all hoping for them to have the opportunity to do so. So I wish them good luck and safety first. And also, they shouldn't try to, go frontal with them, with the government, because people in power tends to be, I would say, very secretive about what's happened to the country. So safety first, and then make sure to cover the truth as usual. Yeah.
Thank you, Francesca. Tom?
No, nothing much more to add really, except that please don't forget us in Sudan. And please, let's try and find ways to do more collaborative reporting. Because at the end of the day, the war in Sudan is not just Sudan, it's regional, it's international, and it involves multiple actors, far and wide. So we're lucky at heighten because we managed to find some excellent reporters, here in Kenya, who we collaborate with, also in Uganda. But we're always looking for more partners, whether it's in Ethiopia, for example, or Chad, Egypt, etc. So let's think more regionally.
Thank you. Jonas?
Okay. I think there is a way to try to face facing the situation in the country, in the presence of conflict, the presence of climate crisis, and the only way is to practice the collaborative journalism. That is the one way who can help the journalists to continue to do their work in covering thematics like what we was talking about. I think it's my last say.
Thank you. I think, yes, something that all the panelists have mentioned, and I'm going to underscore in my own final remarks, is collaboration, because we have seen that the journalists are showing great resilience in continuing to report about the conflict, in continuing to report about the environmental crisis, to continue to bring stories that matter, not only to citizens in the countries, but to Africa and across the world. And it's very important for all of us as stakeholders. We have different responsibilities to play as journalists, as members of civil society organizations, as government and other state officials, as people in regional bodies. We all have different responsibilities to play to ensure that we are supporting journalists and actually ensuring their safety and security, despite the very difficult situations that they are working in. And we have to recognize the duties that our governments hold, because they are really failing in terms of compliance with their duties, and we have to interrogate in our own different capacities what we can do to hold our states accountable, and ensuring that the regional bodies that we have actually step up and undertake the responsibilities that we actually require them to do. But it's been great just listening to the interventions about Sudan and to DRC, and we continue offering our support to journalists in the different manners that we are able to do. And I'm sure there are other organizations in the crowd and attending the festival who have different programs that can actually be useful to journalists in DRC and Sudan. And I will encourage everyone in the crowd to ensure that you engage with journalists who are reporting in these countries and see how we can work together to ensure that we are supporting them and we're ensuring that we are strengthening reporting in our countries and in DRC and Sudan in particular. Thank you very much. And a round of applause for the panelists. Yes, and I wish you an interesting and engaging rest of the festival. Thank you very much.